Steve, you know, not only do I think you do understand grassroots politics, but you have the heart to win the election. And that is, I think that's what Scott was talking about. And Scott, thank you for your leadership. And I think it's Mike Grenstall out there somewhere. There he is. Thank you so much for your leadership. Andy McGuire has been helping me all over the state. Thank you. But today, I saw Steve in action as we went to the emergency center in Council Bluffs. But then we went out and we went on this long drive, and of course I know everything now. I know where the biodiesel plant is, I know where the ethanol plant is, I know where the new Google plant is, and I also saw the waters coming in. And he took me out to meet a woman named Fran, who's this incredible, strong woman whose house is lost. And she was still standing there with her husband on the road because she wanted to talk about what happened. And she still will never forget what she said. She said, "But I loved my kitchen." That's what she said. And it was this beautiful yellow house, and it's still, she has got out of there on St. Patrick's Day, hasn't been able to go back. It's surrounded by water. She is literally 2.5 miles from the river. And that happened because that levee broke. And then Steve also told me the story of a waitress who has 4 kids, single mom. And so what has she been doing? She lost her whole house. She's been raising money to help other people who lost their houses, okay? So that is community. So when Steve talks about that sense of community, I think you know in this area that it still exists. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to announce my candidacy well, maybe you noticed, well, it was in a blizzard, okay? Well, okay. I kind of bring the weather with me. One of the more amusing things about that was that I got to watch myself grow old in 20 minutes. I had no idea the snow was mounting on my head. It was like you could have had a bird up there. I didn't do anything, and one of the more amusing things is the woman who did my hair, who now is like icon because it never moved, and foot of snow. She was there, and she'd been working with me for like 20-some years. And I forgot, the women will appreciate this, of a certain age. I hadn't had my hair colored for a while, so she had sprayed this brown stuff in the part, and while everyone else was just loving the moment, she was praying that it wouldn't melt down all over my face. I just found that out last week. That is a true story. All right, so it was a moment, but it was also, it was just so touching when Steve talked about it, because it was a community moment. We had no idea it was going to snow like that, right? So people were arriving on cross-country skis, and they were bringing their kids on sleds. And thousands of people came to that island in the middle of the Mississippi River, which I had chosen because I wanted to make the point, one, that I have grit to stand out there, but 2, that we must cross that river of our divides and walk that steady bridge of our democracy, just like you guys did here in Iowa, right? With that, sending 2 new women to the United States Congress, to a higher plane in our politics. And I also picked that place because it was just a mile away from when that bridge fell down in the middle of that beautiful summer day. And I actually live right near that bridge. And so that was a bridge I brought my family over every single day. My husband and daughter, we would always drive everywhere over that bridge. And one day it just fell down. 8-lane highway, right? 13 people die in the middle of the Mississippi River. And so just like the country's focused on this flooding in Iowa and Nebraska and Missouri right now, and that sense of community and the story of the waitress and the story of Fran, people were watching our community, and they saw an off-duty firefighter tethering herself to the side of the river and diving in and out, looking for survivors in those mangled cars and trucks. And they saw and heard the story of a Tasty truck driver who could have saved his life by ramming into the back of that school bus, but he veered off so he wouldn't do it and burned to death. Or the school bus that plummeted down 30 feet, hung on a guardrail, and the school bus, not the driver, but the worker, a guy named Hernandez, had the presence of mind not to just get himself off that bus, he got all 30 kids off that bus to safety. So that was community. And I'm running for president because I have seen that community fracturing all over our nation, with a guy in the White House that literally seems to wake up every day to try to widen the divides, right? Instead of bringing people together. My background is a little different than some of the other candidates. I am in your state in the north. I am your senator next door. As I often like to say, I can see Iowa from my porch. But my grandpa was an iron ore miner. He worked 1,500 feet underground his whole life, never graduated from high school, dropped out of school, I think in 6th grade, to support his 8 brothers and sisters because his parents were sick. And he ends up going to work as a teamster pulling a wagon, and then goes to work in the iron ore mines. And he wanted to be in the Navy, but every day he went down 1,500 feet underground in this mine shaft so that he could support those 8 brothers and sisters and get the youngest one out of an orphanage in Duluth. He did all that, and he married my grandma, and they had my dad and his brother Dick. And my dad ended up being the first one to graduate from college in their family. He went to a community college. My dad saved money in a coffee can to send him there. And then my dad, after getting that 2-year degree, that's why I'm such a big fan of 2-year degrees, he ends up going to the University of Minnesota, where he got a degree in journalism and went on to travel the world as a columnist and a newspaper man and interview everyone from Chicago Bears coach Mike Ditka to Ronald Reagan, to Hubert Humphrey, to Ginger Rogers, right? That's my story. And then my mom grew up in Milwaukee, which is going to be the site of our national convention in 2020. And my mom actually grew up in Milwaukee. She got her teacher's degree out there, then came to Minnesota because they had a good teachers union. And she ended up teaching 2nd grade till she was 70 years old. And I just met someone in the airport that had my mom in 2nd grade, and she was his favorite teacher. But my favorite story of my mom was when she taught the monarch butterfly unit, which was her favorite thing to teach. And when she would, after getting the milkweed and the caterpillar, she would release the monarch in this monarch butterfly outfit, which included, that she wore, tights, a tunic, antennas, and a sign that said, "To Mexico or bust." And I knew, she always told me she went grocery store shopping in that outfit after school, and I never knew why until she died, and this family came to the visitation. And this mom was crying. She had this older son who had disabilities, pretty severe disabilities. And the mom said, "This is my son, and he had your mom in 2nd grade, and she was his favorite teacher. And he loved that monarch butterfly unit." And years later, after he graduated, he got a job bagging groceries at that grocery store. And so your mom, she said, would wear that outfit every year when she taught the unit and go to his store and stand in his line and get her groceries and give him a big hug. So that was my mom. So I stand before you today as the granddaughter of an iron ore miner, as the daughter of a teacher and a newspaperman, as the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota, and a candidate for President of the United States. That is why we are this country of shared dreams, and you all have your own stories and obstacles you have overcome to get to where you are, and you all have a reason that you're here today, and that you love this country, and you want to see some change in the White House. That's a Minnesota euphemism. So I've really been focused on the things that I see as challenges before us. One of them is infrastructure. That's part of why I was out with Fran, and why I was at a union meeting earlier today in Omaha, and why I was in southwestern Iowa, where we were talking about broadband in a small town, why I went around the state, and am going to continue to do that, and around the country, and was with Senator Tammy Duckworth in Chicago at a transit station, because I believe that we need to invest in the underpinnings and foundation of this country, right? That, you know, that in Iowa with these floods. What would it have meant? I heard the story in Omaha about how they were just a few weeks away from starting a $30 million project to protect their air base. It didn't get done because it had been sitting around for 5 years with the money from Washington, and now they have $300 million in damage on that Air Force base as mitigation. Those are the stories you hear all the time. So I put forward an infrastructure plan, and it's a little ironic because the president has been talking about this when he campaigned, when he got elected, and what has he done? He has not done anything. It's like a mirage. He puts out this figure, doesn't show how we're going to pay for it. So I have mine all paid for, and it's not that bad. It's a good idea. So this is what it is. It's investment in roads and bridges, right? It is $1 trillion investment in infrastructure, in things like transit, in things like water and infrastructure, locks and dams, and things like flood mitigation, and the work that we should be doing on our sewer systems and our water systems, all of that. And I pay for it by looking at that Republican tax bill, where everyone agreed, for the most part, we need to bring the corporate tax rate down a bit. But instead of just having to be at 25%, they brought it all the way down to 21%. And every point they went down was $100 billion. So if you just bring it up to 25%, it used to be in the 30s, you would in fact save $400 billion that can be used for infrastructure. If you look at what they did with overseas money, instead of just charging at the rate of each country, they did this crazy thing where they did the average. And you know how much we would save by going back to each country? $150 billion. Do you have overseas money in the Bahamas? No, you do not. I just guessed that you do not. So that is what just happened. So that's the money right there. In addition to an infrastructure financing authority, which is a great idea, where you put federal money in and then private investment comes in, and we'll make sure there's a carve out for rural. I know this since my state is 5th for agriculture. And then the other piece of this would be some infrastructure bonds. So that's one thing, and that's the plan I just put out when I'm going around Iowa talking about today. Secondly, we've got climate change, right? On day one, I will bring us back into the International Climate Change Agreement, right? There are clean power rules that have been left on the cutting room floor. There are gas mileage standards. We can do building standards. We can do all of this, but right now the administration is literally going backwards. And I think it's really important to have a voice from the Midwest that talks about climate change in terms of the flooding that we're seeing, and what that means, and why we're having these extraordinary weather events which were predicted. What it means when you have wildfires in places like Colorado, in places like Minnesota. You all seen that video, and if you haven't, you should look at it, of this dad who is in Northern California near that horrible fire in Paradise, and he is driving his little girl through lapping flames as their house is burning behind them, singing to her to calm her down as this wildfire on either side of the road is coming at them. Those are things that aren't happening 100 years from now. They're happening right now. And that's why I am devoted to taking on climate change and doing something to reduce greenhouse gases. It's time to get it done. Okay. Another challenge, workforce training, making sure that we've got, and it's certainly an issue all over Iowa, all over the Midwest, making sure that we are helping kids to get trained and helping workers who've lost their jobs to get trained in the jobs that are available now, right? New technology, the digital revolution isn't coming, it's here, and that's got to be a big part of what we do. With that digital revolution has come privacy problems, right? We need privacy legislation. We need to make sure that we are doing something about our cybersecurity for our country. These are all challenges that are in front of us now. Income inequality, right? If we are going to be minimum wage up on the federal level, hasn't gone up since I first got to the Senate, pretty crazy. If we are going to be doing something about incentivizing companies to get machinery and stuff, we should be doing the same thing for workers, right? We have to look at this as how do we have a check and balance on our great capitalist system. What do we do to make sure that it's looking out for us? Well, I would start with minimum wage. I would also make sure that we're making sure that the benefits of today, when people have different jobs, are portable, and you make it easier so that you can save for retirement, and so that we have capitalism that works for everyone. But the other thing I would do, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow, is fix our antitrust laws. I don't know if you know that the Granger movement started in Minnesota and Iowa with a bunch of farmers. And do you know which state way back over 100 years ago had the first antitrust law? Iowa. Yes, you did. You were ahead of your time because the farmers saw what was coming their way, and they saw what was happening when monopolies were controlling the freight on the rails, and what was happening when monopolies were controlling their seeds and other things. So I am the ranking on the antitrust committee. I've got a bunch of bills out there to take this on, and I think the time has come that monopolies shouldn't be telling us what to do, and that our laws has to be as sophisticated as the companies that are messing around with us. So that's another thing. All right. And the last thing I want to talk about was just this culture of getting things done. Some people think this is going out of vogue. I don't think it's going out of vogue. When you look at how we won the governor's race in what state? Kansas, okay, with Laura Kelly. That was because they knew they could trust her to get things done. How do you think we won the governor's race? My favorite one we won when we beat Scott Walker in the state of Arizona. It was the same thing. So I am someone that has taken on tough issues like farmer prices. I lead the bill to allow our seniors to negotiate prices under Medicare, which would make a big difference for our seniors, and the bill to bring in less expensive drugs from other countries. But I'm also someone that has gotten things done. And I've done that by trying to find common ground wherever I can. Senator Grassley and I just introduced an important bill about bankruptcy for farmers, right? As you see what's happening with the farm economy. We took on the oil companies when the administration was granting these secret waivers, which has been very bad for the biofuels industry in Iowa and very bad for jobs. And I find common ground wherever I can find it. And that is why I was just ranked by Vanderbilt as the most effective Democratic senator last month. And that is on 15 members. And I did by not by giving up my ground. I hold my ground. I think we share the same progressive values in this room. But I did it by trying to find where can I find someone who's going to agree with me on this issue. Or where am I going to find someone that'll give me that extra vote to get the bill done? You know, Council Bluffs is the home of John McCain. Is that right? No, that's what, or his dad. His dad, I read it. Okay, good. Yeah, okay. His dad wasn't this close. His dad was born here. I think that this is right, what I read as I was coming in. Maybe I'm wrong, but am I right? Oh, look at our great staff that did the briefing on this. And so he is someone, when he was dying, my husband and I went to visit him at the ranch, him and Cindy, and he pointed to some words in a book. And the book said, a quote from him, and it said, "There's nothing more liberating in life than fighting for a cause larger than yourself." And that is what I feel is at stake right now with our democracy. And that's why you're here on a Friday at 6 o'clock, because you believe that there's a cause larger than ourselves. That you could be home on your own, but instead you're participating in this incredibly important presidential race. And I am here because I believe that I can win, and that I can get things done, and I can be your president. I have won. Okay, I want you to clap, but I want to give you the fact. I have won every single congressional district in Minnesota, including 4 rural ones, which was Tim Walz and Colin Peterson's, and the Republican ones, and Michelle Bachmann won every single time I ran, 3 times in a row. Donald Trump almost won Minnesota and won every rural colony. I took 40 of them back in the 2018 election and headed up our ticket that included winning the governor's race, winning the other Senate seat, and taking back the House of Representatives in the state of Minnesota that had gone Republican, and now it's Democrat. So that's what we've done. Because I believe that when you're at the top of a ticket, yes, it's the most important thing. But it's also important to look at all those races down the way, those local races like Steve, to make sure that we continue to keep that house. Okay, is that you back there? Okay, that's a cheer for, yeah, okay, good, exactly. And making sure that we keep Cindy and Abby and Lopesec in their jobs, right? That's incredibly important, and that we beat Steve King, okay? That is what this is about. And that we win this U.S. Senate seat in the state of Iowa, all right? So that is what we're talking about here. It is a national movement. It is not just about one person. Because if we're going to get these things done that I just talked about, we need to keep that House, win back the Senate, and win the White House. And I would love your support so I can do it. Thank you.